Hello and welcome from Portugal with Love, hosted by me, Lauren Covas. Today I am joined by the fabulous Maria Lawton. She's a cookbook author, PBS host of Maria's Portuguese Table. She's Azorean. She's known as the Azorean Greenbean. Hello, welcome, Maria.
Hello.
So
Yeah,
great to have you here.
thanks for having me, hon. Thank you.
So I'm going to jump right into it
Let's
because
yeah, both feet
we're
in.
gonna
Let's
we're
go.
gonna talk about my favorite thing, which is food. And if I think that's right in
Absolutely.
your up your alley.
Yeah. Hello. Yes.
So not only I feel that Portuguese food is going to be part of the conversation, no matter where you are or who you're talking to. Um,
100%.
it just comes down to it because I think it's in our blood. It's in our
Yeah.
DNA.
It's in our DNA. We can't help
It
it.
is.
We can't help.
And so, for people who don't know that are tuning in, you are from the Azores,
I am.
and that's actually islands off of the west coast of Portugal.
Yep.
And just kind of want to get a feeling because I've actually never visited that part.
Okay.
What do
We'll
you
change
love?
that.
What's so
We'll
different about
change
the
that.
Azores?
We will make
I
change that.
let's go next trip. I'm in.
Yes. Let's do it.
What's so
uh,
different about that versus what I call like the mainland?
Well, you know what's funny? I always tell people I'm like I'm Azorian. I'm Azorian. I'm Azorian. Yes, because I was born in the middle of the Atlantic on these islands in the middle of the Atlantic. That's how I tell people. Do you know I was born in an island in the middle of the Atlantic? And they
That's
go, "What?
awesome.
What the hell you're talking about?" And it's like, yes, we're an autonomous region of Portugal, but my roots go back to Trás-os-Montes.
Oh,
Uh,
okay.
so I can trace my ancestry back to 1476, if I'm not mistaken, to that area. And the whole migration of certain parts of my family leaving the continent, leaving Trás-os-Montes, going to the Algarve, leaving some of the family leaving through the Algarve. That was the port that they left
Yeah.
all out of. And some went to Madeira, some went to Brazil, some went to the Azores. And so my when I did my DNA kind of thing, all my DNA cousins or my DNA family, it is number one, the Azores, number two, Madeira, and number three, every little part of Trás-os-Montes all the way down to
Yeah.
how they left, which is really interesting. Uh, so my roots are very deep, and that's on both sides of the family. So I always thought I'd be like a little Italian because I love Italian. And when I've been in.
Similar in cuisine.
Oh, yeah, yeah, and I have very dear friends of mine that are Italian, and they swear that I'm Italian, and I swear they're Portuguese. So it's a type of thing where there's so much connected. And we know that the Romans invaded the Iberian Peninsula, so we know we have that there. The same way when I was in Ireland, I felt very connected there as
Yeah.
well.
I
Uh,
think it's an Eastern European.
we have Celtic roots. We
Yeah.
also have Celtic roots.
But
So it's there's a thing of
bond.
we're so connected.
Yeah. I say
We're
like there's such a bond there.
so connected. So those islands, when you come from the mainland and now you go to the islands, you can't cook the same way because you're in the middle of an island.
Well,
You don't have
resources are different.
you,
Land is different.
topography, everything is different. So you need to take the roots that you had, and make them so that you can continue with them on an island. So we have a cozido, and the cozido comes from Trás-os-Montes. I mean, we have to look at the north. The
Yeah.
north is where we began.
So that's where my family's from, up north.
We
So
might be related. For all we know,
no, right? Well, it's like
we
so I live in New Jersey, and especially the Ironbound section, very rich in Portuguese and like a lot of immigrants that came here, my parents and whatnot. I'm first generation born here. And the biggest thing is when they say, where are you from? I'm like, oh, from Mortosa. It's around 40 minutes. Oh, I know that. And da-da-da. My cousin, and everyone thinks that they know it. And then surprisingly, you go in July there and you see everyone you know from here over there.
Isn't that the truth? That really is.
Yeah.
I always kind of tease that every time whenever I go any, to Portugal, to whatever, it'd be like, "Oh, did you see? That's your cousin." I'm like, "My cousin?" And it's like people I have never met, but
Yeah.
they'll approach me as prima. So at this point, by the end of my 2 or 3 weeks there, I have so many cousins that I
And everyone just gets along. And as long
everyone
as you
gets
put,
along,
yeah.
everyone gets along. So, yeah, so the roots of I was born there.
Okay. So, yes, I was looking at your stuff. You came over when you were 6, right?
I was 6, and
So,
I
like,
came
what's your earliest childhood memory when you were there then, being that young?
I remember our home, I remember our garden, I remember our quinta that we used to have, I used to play in that quinta. There was a chapel in that quinta, so I remember, like, playing with my dolls in the chapel. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
As well as the adega, that my dad would that we'd have, where, all the wine was stored, all the vegetables were stored,
The
and,
white jugs with the, it
Oh,
does look
yeah.
it's like a wicker on the outside.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. And then, of course, having, I mean, for those that don't, like to talk about this, but, we raised animals and we
Oh,
slaughtered animals. And there are people who, when you talk about, like, yeah, I saw my mom doing that with chickens all the time. And I remember when it was matasao, which is, you have the pig,
the pig and make the sausage,
to
yeah.
make the sausages and to I mean, I remember all that, even little, because it was always a party. I
But
remember
it was always what was going on because everyone was engaged in that activity. Like
That's right.
my grandparents had pigs, chickens, ducks, roosters, full garden, lemon, lime
Yeah,
trees. I mean, everything, potatoes. But
yeah,
like when my grandfather killed the pig, the neighbors came over. I remember as a kid the workbench that they would lay the pig on to drain the blood because, one thing that I think that's very lost is we used everything. You use
oh,
everything
yeah,
growing up. So that pig turned into fibras, turned into pork loin, turned into sausage casing. And everyone was there doing it.
that's
So
right.
it does instill such a good memory and build that nostalgia around that
Yeah,
activity.
yeah, and of course, I remember getting on that plane and coming here, and I
You were 6
remember
coming over.
yeah, I remember that, and because I was 6, so I would
Yeah.
remember that's a clear vision that memory that I have, and I remember that I was told it was gonna be I would be speaking a different language, so I remember, like making up a mumbo jumbo kind of thing, and people would say, "What are you talking?" I said, "Well, I'm talking English because that's my new language," kind of thing, I remember that. I remember that. And
When you
then
when you guys immigrated over, you
yes.
guys went to Massachusetts, correct?
Yes.
And
Yes.
at 6, we see the world as such a big place. We're little, like, so your imagination, same thing. You
Yeah.
remember getting on the plane and you're traveling and you're moving to a new country.
Yeah.
Did you feel like it was a different world once you got here and settled in?
You know what? I've always seen it. How can I explain it? It was just an extension of I was 6, I was there, and then I came here, and this is our new life. It was
No
like,
culture shock?
"Oh, yeah, this is it." But I was not allowed to speak English in the house.
Oh,
I had to speak Portuguese in the house because my parents and why we chose Massachusetts is because that's where my mom's side of the family had
right.
immigrated to, and she was the last one. She was the last holdout from her side of the family to come here to the United States. They had been here since like the 1920s or even before that. So I think it was 1918 they've been here since that time. And so my mom was like the last holdout, and for the longest time, even through before World War One, they would go they would go back and forth. There was a
Yeah,
boat that would go back and forth without any problem, and then after that, it all stopped. But when we got here, my dad and my mom, especially, were like, "You are never gonna forget who you are. You are never gonna forget what you come from and who you come from. And so you can speak English outside, but in this house, we only speak Portuguese."
So
And
my parents did that too, because well, my avó was with us, and they went back and forth. My mom came through Canada, actually.
oh,
They
okay.
went through France, then they came through Canada. But even with my dad, he always said, "You didn't. No one spoke English at home."
No.
And so I actually didn't speak English until second grade because we lived in the ironbound section. You didn't need to speak English.
Oh my god, it was the same thing. Same
Yeah,
thing here in New Bedford. And what's funny is I'm much older than you. I am much older than you. And so there was no bilingual programs. There
no,
was none of that when I came in and into school. So it was total immersion.
yeah. First grade
So
for me was a Portuguese school. It was in Kearney,
yeah.
and everyone spoke Portuguese. The grocery Ciabras, you never needed to speak
You did not, and my parents
English.
never needed that, because of that, just what you said. The
Yeah,
butcher spoke Portuguese, the store, the mass, I
yeah,
mean,
yeah.
it
And
was
Elizabeth, Our Lady of Fatima Church, no, it was always mass was in Portuguese
yeah,
for my parents. So like, yes, you can go out, have your friends do things, but in my house, which I think is just that novelty of being raised the way we were,
yeah,
very old school, which you don't want to lose that culture. I tried
yeah,
with my oldest when my oldest Logan was born. My grandmother was here; she was staying with us, and my mom. And I was like, "Okay, guys, we're only going to speak Portuguese to him, just to get." But I married a non-pork chop, and now he was like, "You're confusing the kid because daddy's," and I was like, "Oh, so that failed." But I tried so hard in the beginning, but it was so much easier when I was growing up because we lived in Newark, we lived in a community, and that's something that being an immigrant over, you go into these communities. Your parents found
right,
that niche. Same with my parents and their parents; they found
yeah.
those
There's
communities.
comfort. It's comfort in that. There's
Yeah,
comfort. And, you're in a Portuguese enclave, which everyone knows everyone and everyone takes care of everyone. There is all that there's all that good that
there is
is
a big
part of it.
community with, even working now with I wrote a cookbook and that coming out and seeing all these different avenues and different networks, the community that has been built, everyone wants to back each other and help each other and keep that tradition and the heritage
Yeah,
alive because if
yes,
not, it's fleeting. In America, a lot of, I can only speak from Italian, Spanish, French, it's very big and prominent. Portuguese is now starting. I mean, it's now one of the biggest places traveled to. It's really coming into its own.
yeah.
So teaching as much as
And
we can.
I always found an issue with that. I did not start off with this in my life. This is not what like you want food, you're cooking, you're this is what you at a young age,
Hmm.
which is beautiful. It really is. It's wonderful, and I commend that. I didn't start that way. I started, I had, went to college for something else, was in management for a very long time and marketing and being a director over marketing over a large company and stuff. That's what I did. And I cooked. I was always a very good cook,
So
but
you always liked being in the kitchen?
I've always liked being in the kitchen. But it was never something that I thought, "I'm gonna be doing this," because that's not what I had in mind.
Well, was it ever put in a position where this is a job, or this could be a job, or this could be something
Uh,
you love to do?
Only after in my 50s.
Right. Because when you grow up with it, or like, I don't know about you, but I grew up, my mother and my avó were always in the kitchen.
Yes.
So not that it's expected, but that's where I went to hang out with them. I loved being in the kitchen. And yes, at my age, I realized I've always been a chef. I've always been in a food. I saw that I could bring my heritage and my culture and
Yeah.
teach
Yep.
and keep it alive and
Yeah.
bring noise to it. So,
Yeah.
like, you always knew you loved to cook, which I mean, you did very well. I was reading your cookbooks, PBS. Like, first of all, I know you probably get this all the time, but where does the Azorean Greenbean come from? Like, where did this creativity
All
come
right.
in?
Okay. So I'm gonna try to give you the abridged version, okay?
Okay.
Because I can go on a tangent, and you're gonna have to say, "Maria, come on back," okay?
It's okay.
Okay. So this is the best way to even because it is the truth. I'm an open book, so it is the truth. And that is I never really, like I said, never really thought cooking was Always loved it. I specifically loved when my grandmother was alive, baking with her. Baking, my love for baking comes from her. My mom was not that great of a baker, except for when she would make her masa, her the
Mhm.
sweet bread. For that was like amazing for her, and some other little breads. But my grandmother was like the desserts, the bake, the breads. This that was her. The boulgeleb, that was her. And so I loved that being with her. My grandmother was, she lived till 96. She was like a force, a force.
I feel like they all are though, aren't they?
Oh, they had to be. When you
Yeah.
think about it,
Mine
they had
mine
to be
mine is the same way. She
because
is
my mom was softer. My grandmother was, whew, and her and I got along so well. She was my
yeah,
love, and I know she loved me the same way.
I have that kind
So
of relationship as well.
yeah, and so when, I'm in my 30s, I have my family and I have all the stuff, I get into my 40s, my kids are getting I'm getting more doing more stuff, my husband, we're like, it's life, it's life, it's life, everything is going whatever. And then all of a sudden, my mom was diagnosed with cancer and breast cancer. And then a little bit after that, my brother-in-law, who was like a brother to me, the man I adore and loved, he got diagnosed with cancer. And then it was in four, like in a span of time, I lost my mom, I lost my brother-in-law, I lost my grandmother, and I lost my dad.
It's a lot.
It was
It's
a
a
lot.
lot. That
So
is
it was, once I would be done with grieving one loss, I would like, and you come up for air, I would lose another. And that happened all like until it was like, oh my God, what am I gonna like? When
well,
is
can
this
I
gonna
get a
stop?
break? Can I get a break?
Can I get a break? And it was only after that dust settled that I looked to my husband and I said, oh my God, I lost everyone. I've lost everyone. And when you lose your mom, your grandmother, your dad, your all those people that are so important to us.
Help make you who you are.
Oh, they made me who I am.
Yeah.
I'm a pain in the ass because of them. I'm a pushy broad because of them.
I always say to my mom, apple tree,
Oh,
you know?
you know what I say? You plant a cabbage, you get a cabbage. And I'm a cabbage. I am. So I just saw that I was losing everything I lost everything that was so important. And so my Sunday dinners were no longer, because Sunday dinners were always at my parents'. The parties and the events and all of these things that we all did as a family all of a sudden ended. Like
Yeah.
everything changed. And I was finding myself being the one, even though I have two older sisters, I'm the youngest of three, of three daughters. I was the one trying
Keep it.
to keep things going, but you can't if not everyone else feels that way. Does that make sense?
Yes,
So
100%.
so now all I could think of was, you know what? I have to take care of my daughters, and I have
Mhm.
3 daughters. And the thought was they can never forget where they came from. Because even though my husband is English Irish, he's not Portuguese. I think I was the first one out of my family to marry outside the Portuguese realm.
Mhm.
Uh, uh, they're still half Portuguese. And so that half Portuguese DNA overtakes every other DNA. So I'm sorry if, I just see it as,
Well, I agree. My husband, when I met him, and he's not Portuguese, it was so funny. He was such a picky eater, and he was
mm,
very much scared to try things. And he thought, fish sticks was real fish out of a box, and that's fine. That's what he was raised on. But I had to be like, listen, you're going to
no,
be in this house. You got to know this. And it was one of our first dates. He came to my house, in my apartment at the time, to pick me up, and I was making ganja. And so I use chicken feet when I make ganja because that's the way I was taught. And
yeah.
I like the way it makes the soup taste, and I eat them. That's like my little snack. Well, I had them in the sink because I was cleaning them. And he walked in, but I didn't realize that like they were in the pot, like overflowing.
Oh,
Well,
that can be a
this
lot
man
for
is
some people.
he asked me why I had baby's hands in a pot in my kitchen sink, and I was like, "No, oh no, wait." He's like, "You're gonna put that in soup?" Let me tell you something. He eats everything from cabrito, bacalhau, everything you now think of that's even feijoada. He's like, "Ooh, I like that." This and that, and I'm like, "But that's because it's made. It's a. I think it's because we really do make it like from scratch and
Yeah,
from with real ingredients and
lots
real
of love.
flavors. Yeah,
Lots of love
you know,
goes
people
into
joke
our
about
food.
having love in a dish. I'm like, no, there really is. That's something like when you said about the sweetbread. I knew when I saw the panu come out that was going to cover the masa on the corner. I knew my grandmother was making bread, and I'm not a baker. I never really got into desserts and baking. And when I saw those kinds of things, that warmth inside gets you, and you get so
Yeah,
excited.
yeah,
But it's made with love.
yeah,
It
yeah,
really is.
yeah. So when all that, I said to my husband, I said, "You know what? I'm putting together a book for my girls." And I started writing down stuff. And I had from people that I worked with, I knew someone, a printing company. They didn't even print books.
Yeah,
This was they printed, leaflets and this and that. And I think the first book they printed was mine. And but they did it as a favor to me because I had used them all these years in my job.
yeah,
And so they printed up a certain number of them, and it was just going to be for my daughters, my nieces and nephews, my sisters, my cousins, like just family. And when they were printing it and working on it, the people in the press, the people that were printing it, were like, "How can we get a copy of this?" And so then the printer contacted me and said, "Okay, how much do you want for the book?" And I went, "There's no price on the book. I'm making these to give to my family." And they're like, "No, no, 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 no. I think you've got something else here because there are people who want the book and they want to buy it." And I'm like, I made an arbitrary price. I picked a price out of the blue sky.
okay.
And yeah, and like, okay, sure, right. How about this? And then it snowballed. It snowballed to getting, a publisher reaching out to me, having this, having that. It just became something
Bigger.
that
Yeah.
I
It's
didn't
organically grew itself.
it grew itself. It was not it. And at one point I had to come up with a company name. And so and at that time I wanted to be called the Greenhorn. Greenhorn LLC, because I was called a greenhorn a lot and growing up. And I never took it as an insult when I was called that because I really love who I am. And so when they would say, fava bean, pork chop, the greenhorn, whatever, blah, blah, blah,
Yeah.
I would say, huh, you wish, you wish, you wish, because I know who I am, and it's wonderful. And if you want to call me that name, go ahead. I see it as a badge of honor. It's just it
Yeah.
does. You're trying to insult me, but it doesn't insult me in any means. So when I said I wanted to call it greenhorn, my husband's like, Maria, please don't call it greenhorn. Please don't do that. Don't do that. So so I'm like, okay, green, because I was born on San Miguel, which is the Green Island,
Right.
and I have to put bean in there because I was a fava bean. I was all of these things that I was called. And so I said, okay, the Azorean green bean. And that's where it stuck.
It's
Never thinking that I would be talking about it how many years now after saying why I called it that. Because if I knew that, I would have called it something completely
you know
different.
what? But it works because you not only have that story that builds that connection to it.
Yeah.
Anyone who understands the culture and how important food is, and
Yeah.
something like being called a greenhorn, like, yeah, I'm stubborn, I'm tough, I'm deep rooted. Like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
bring
Go ahead.
it
Call me
on. I'm
that.
Portuguese.
Yeah, go ahead. So yeah, so that's where the name came from. And that's how this all started. And and so even at that, for the when the first book actually was uh
Published.
published
Yeah.
by Union Park Press at the time. They're no longer in business anymore. But when that went out, I was still working. That was like, I'm still thinking that's a little something, whatever. Nothing's really gonna. And then I'm like, oh, we need to do a book tour. Like, book tour? What book tour? They're like, yeah, you need to go here. We need to go there. We need to do this. We need to do that. I'm like, oh, okay. And then all of a sudden, now it's a book talk. Now I'm doing book talks. And every time I do book talks, I always do my, whatever, wherever I
Yes.
am, and what's appropriate for where I am doing that talk. I always leave questions and answers to the end, as you do, as
Yeah.
anybody else does. And one of the first questions would always be, why aren't we represented on TV? And I kept saying, "You're absolutely correct." Because even though I love my Italian, I love my Lydia, which I've met her a couple of times. She is just the most beautiful woman.
Yes.
I told her we were separated at birth. She looked at me funny. I don't think she'll ever talk to me again, but that's okay.
She
And
lives in New Jersey. And actually, I got a bunch of her sauces, and they were
oh,
excellent.
she's an awesome woman. And Marianne Esposito of Ciao Italia, I've met her. I mean, so I've got all these. I've met Ming. I mean, I've met a whole bunch of, and everything is wonderful, and I love everything that they do. There's Greek, there's this, but there's nothing
There's no
Portuguese.
Portuguese.
No Portuguese. So I don't know where I was, and that question came up again. And at the end of the talk, I think it was in Rhode Island, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, it was in Rhode Island. And someone came up to me and said, have you heard of Ciao Italia? And I'm like, yeah, of course. I mean, I've watched it. And she's like, well, she was the first Italian cooking show on PBS, was Ciao Italia. And they actually filmed in the studio at PBS Rhode Island, which they don't do that anymore. They don't have a cooking studio anymore. But they did when she started. And she's like, they're very open to ideas. They're very open to, whatever. So maybe you need to have a talk with them about doing something about Portuguese culture. Because when you look at the United States and you look at where we are as Portuguese,
We're
yeah,
very clustered. We're everywhere, but we're very clustered.
correct.
And there's a lot of room for growth. And people love here. When people hear, first of all, I don't physically look like a typical pork chop. I am 5'11", blonde hair, blue eyed. So like when I
But
tell
yeah, you
people,
do.
yeah, but
But
like
you
when I tell
do.
people I'm from Portugal
You do.
and Portuguese,
Yeah.
they're like, "Oh my God, it's such a beautiful country. Oh my God, I love the food." And I'm like, "Where do you have Portuguese restaurants near you? Do you know how to cook Portuguese?" And the answer, a lot of times, is no.
Yeah.
And by
Yeah.
you being able to have that opportunity with PBS is like huge because you're going to be in their house now.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I sent out a message, I followed up, the usual thing,
Yeah.
whatever. And I got a meeting to talk, because I thought I was going to be telling them what they should be doing, because I had my numbers ready. As I had my numbers. And that is the highest percentage of per population per geographic area, the
Yep.
highest one is Rhode Island. That is the highest percentage of Portuguese in all of the United States, because it's the smallest state. If we're talking numbers, it's California. We know that. But we're in Hawaii, we're everywhere, like you said. So I sat there, told them my spiel, because I'm never afraid to speak my whatever. And
That's a good thing. Don't ever lose
yeah,
that.
no, and see and tell them what they should be doing. They need to do that. There is a missed opportunity there. And at the end, they put it back on me and said, "Do a pilot." And I'm like, "Do a pilot? A pilot of what?" Like, you know,
I'm just giving you ideas. I didn't know that it was going to.
yeah, I'm giving you ideas. Now you're telling me I need to do a pilot. And they're like, "Well, just see what you think what it should be." And I said to her, I said, "It is not going to be Maria in the kitchen." I knew I didn't want that. I didn't want that, because I'm not a trained chef, and I'm not going to play one on TV. I'm never
But
gonna
hold on a
say
second. All chefs, and this makes my blood boil because I was one of very didn't have many females in culinary school when I
yeah,
went to culinary school. And when you hear any big chef or any, I don't care, male chefs say, you know what they learned to cook from or who they loved? Their mother, their grandmother,
oh,
and
hands down.
that's where the love. That's why they went into this business. I'll tell you, that's why I went in this business. So I always joke that first of all, you don't need culinary school is great. I went to culinary school. It's such a great tool that gave me. But what I really learned was hands-on experience and learning from the people who really just loved food, who knew where it came from. Like
Right.
my grandmother grew the potato, so I got to see from start to the day it's on my plate. Like same thing with the animals, and you take a different respect and appreciation for food, cuisine, flavor, all of
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
So having that, you don't need to be a chef.
Yeah, but you know
You
what?
know,
But that's I still like to be called a home cook, and I
okay,
still like to be I'm a good home cook, don't get me wrong, I'm really
we'll
good.
be over for dinner. Don't worry.
But, I kinda for me, I kinda respect the fact you went to culinary school, and that respect needs to be there,
I
and so
appreciate that.
yeah,
I
that's how I
walked in
see it.
with a little bit of an upper hand. You know why? I've had a peeler in my hand since I was 6. I
Yeah.
knew what I knew, well, I called it a little knife, but it was a paring knife, and I knew when when I
Oh,
peeled the potato,
and
I could
and the way that we do it with our knife, people go,
yeah.
"What? What are you doing?" It's like, "But
I
this
went
is
to
how we're taught," you know?
French culinary school, and they're teaching how to tourne a potato. And I'm like, tourne a potato. And I do it. And they're like, how did you, the same symmetrical sides? I'm like, because that's how they serve potatoes at any kind of fancy dinner. And it's done with a knife like this.
Yeah.
Or quenelle. I had kids in culinary school learning how to quenelle. And I was like, you never
Well,
made
this
bones of
is
bacalao.
but, yeah, this is the way you do it with the 2 spoons.
Quenelle, she
That's
has to,
right. That's right. That's right.
like, so I walked in knowing those things as well as,
Yeah.
you know, you
Yeah.
don't waste anything. You peel
Yeah.
carrots, they go in a bucket or we had a bowl. They had a bowl on the counter. And at my grandmother's, because she had the animals, everything went on the counter in the bowl to feed the animals. At my mom's house, it went in a Ziploc bag in the freezer because as soon as she needed it for soup, a piece of bone this big was saved in the freezer with the piece of chorizo this big or whatever, because that's how you learn. That's what they're teaching in culinary school. And I was like, well, of course you're going to save the onions and the carrots. It's going to make the best tasting broth.
That's
Like,
right, because I remember them saving all the scraps and
yeah.
making that broth. So, it's all of these things um, that all comes back, you know what I
Mhm.
mean? That you don't forget and that you don't. So, it's a type of thing where, yeah, it
It's the
means
nostalgia behind it.
oh, yeah. There's so much not only our food memories, and I always say this all the time, and that is our food memories our or that part of our hippocampus or whatever that part of
Yeah.
our brain, uh, that is the last memory that you lose
Till the end, they say.
to the end.
Well, I'll be, I'm good.
It
Yeah,
is food memories, and in the same way that our nose is connected to that certain part of the brain, that if you go somewhere or you're in your kitchen and you're making something and that smell comes
yeah.
out, all of a sudden, you're almost like I always say to people, it's almost like a time machine. It
I
is
was
a
on the phone.
true
It
time
is.
machine.
I was on the phone with my father day before yesterday, talking about something,
Yep,
and I don't know how the story got, but my dad grew up in a three-family home in Newark.
yep,
So, and his when my grandparents, like sisters or brothers or cousins, would come, they would stay in their house, and they would help them get a job just to like get acclimated. But his grandmother and his aunt lived there, and he can describe coming home from school and fried eggs. And I joke, I go, Dad, fried eggs? He goes, because she fried them in a cast iron dish with olive oil,
ooh,
like 2 inches of olive oil, and she would
ooh,
spoon it. And the way he started talking about this memory,
crispy
the
egg.
edge, the egg fries up, then she would
Yep,
take the salt, and then, our salt is coarse and thick, like I love. That's one of my favorite things is the salt. And he was talking, and I could hear him go, I could taste it. I could smell it. And I'm like, and he goes, there was always cooking. Every floor, someone was cooking. So there was always a smell when you walked in the house and you knew
yep.
there was going to be something good on the table.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I I'm see, I think I am old enough to be your mom. But,
We
so
don't women never share their age.
no, no. Inside, I'm a really young chick still, but outside is a whole different story. Uh, but, it was the same thing. I grew up in a 3 family. So we had the first floor, my grandparents had the second, my aunt and uncle had the third. So I'd come home from school, my parents would work different shifts, so someone was always at home.
Mhm.
And so I would come home and be my grandmother, that I would spend time with. So whereas your dad thinks of that egg, I always think of when, depending on the season, if it was winter time, she'd always have popish, and popish is a porridge, the porridge that we'd have.
Do you put rice in yours or no?
Do you know? No, which is funny because someone else had asked me that, and they're from Santa Maria, and they said I always used to have rice porridge when I would come home, and I said no, I've never had that, but I would assume that it's very close to rice pudding, or it just
So
a
I love papash, but
see.
my mom and my grandma they put rice in it, but I do it with light, like hot milk on top. So I let it sit. It gets cold because I'll eat it warm, but I like it actually cold at
Mm,
nighttime, and I do a little bit of hot milk.
mm,
But
mm.
I knew, like you could, when I saw the pumpkins on the counter, you
Oh,
know,
it would
you know,
be oh, with pumpkin in it. So, the thing is the roasted pumpkins, the roasted sweet potatoes, I mean, we ate in season, and I still try to
yeah.
do that. I still do with my
Oh,
food and stuff. I still eat in season. That's the only way to eat. It really is the only
But
way.
I think that's culturally too. I
Yeah,
think that
yeah,
especially fish is my number one. I
yeah,
mean, we're a fisherman country to start
yeah,
with, but the gulbs are in season. If string beans were in season, whatever it is, and you would harvest what you can to supply later, but you got creative with those things. And that's
yeah.
why I feel like beans, feijoada all came in the
Oh, yeah.
winter because we weren't growing fresh broccoli in December.
Yeah. And it's so yeah, so I remember that, but my grandmother had a sweet tooth. So it was always like, and I know that you call it chabadish, but we don't call it chabadish. We call it fatias douradas,
Okay.
golden slices, but it's the same thing.
Same thing.
So she would do that. She would have that ready for me when I'd get home, or we would make a cake together,
Yeah,
or
there was always something sweet.
always, always.
No, there was always the jelly roll. Like I knew
Oh, yeah,
I love the
yeah.
jelly roll.
Or just bread, butter, and cheese. I mean, that is
Marmelada, queijo de cera, popsicles, everything on the like that. I love the green bag tied, and the problem is I eat the butter with the bread, just like scooping it because the butter is so salty and so rich.
you see just recently, because I talk about butters, because I try to that's the whole thing. I think our key thing is to educate people,
Hmm.
and that's so important. And the how really incredible are ingredients that we have that come out of Portugal that are so undervalued. They're so undervalued.
It's very
So
true.
when you compare, I'll give an example. There is this place in San Miguel that makes these queijadas, that's made with fresh cheese, and it's called queijada de Vila Franca. And so it's this one family. It's a family recipe. It's secret. Everything is secret. We love our secret recipes. And here I am. I want to know all about how to make it because for me, I don't want it to be a secret. I want it to keep going, kind
Right.
of thing. That's how I see it. And so I'm talking to the owner, and I said to him, I said, I know you ship these these cupcakes to the United States. I know they ship them to New Jersey. I know they ship them to here in Rhode Island and Massachusetts and, whatever. Why aren't you making it in the United States? It would cut down the cost of the shipping. You had to ship it
Tax,
frozen.
everything.
You've got all of that stuff, the quality, the quantity, all of that stuff. You could make more. I'm seeing
Right. We see business. It's like,
we
listen,
see business.
you can grow, you
You
can.
could grow, you could do this, you could do that. Like I'm planning him out, and he's going to be like a multimillionaire at
Oh,
this
my
point.
husband yells at me for that all the time. He's like,
Yes,
you
yes,
can
because we
stop
can see
talking
it.
because we're
We can see it, and there's no problem with us having vision.
yeah.
So in that, I'm talking to him, and I'm saying, okay, well, I get it. Our products in Portugal, in the Azores, they're different than here in the United States. You can buy the eggs, the butter, the flour, all that. But why does it taste so different, Maria? It doesn't taste the same. Well, it can't taste the same. Our eggs are different. The eggs there are these bright orange, they're fed differently than they're fed here. You've got flour that's milled. Uh, it's
Just the chicken. My kids were there in March, and we ate chicken at my grandmother's. And my older one, Logan, was like, "I know it's chicken, but it tastes different." I go, "Because it tastes like chicken." No, no, chicken at home doesn't really have a taste. If you were to blindfold and eat it, the chicken there is fed veggies and corn and things that
right,
are making it flavorful.
right.
And it was on all things. It was level of sugar was noted that was different, the bread,
Correct,
everything. My kid, I mean,
correct.
a 13, 14-year-old's picking that up is because it tastes
There's a
different.
difference. And so the same thing with our cows. Our cows there in the Azores, we love cows. There's 2 cows to every person. Do you know that?
No,
In
I
the
didn't know that.
Azores, 2 cows to every person. And so, they are within a certain, they're eating, grass all day. They are not being fed any crap, and they produce this most amazing milk. They create the most delicious yogurts. Oh my god, the yogurts there are
Yeah.
incredible. And the cheeses, and we all know that, right? And the butter. The butter from Azores is incredible. So I always see it when I go to the store and I see a block of Azorean cheese or Azorean butter, and I compare it to the American form of it. And I know that ours is so much better and it's so undervalued and people don't understand how great it is.
Yeah.
So I like to always,
It's
so in
but that's
talking
the
to,
education that's needed to be
yes,
provided, and I
correct.
agree because, like, even for me, when I wrote my book's called Little Portugal,
Yep.
and it's all recipes from my grandmother and my mother, that
Yes.
I grew up with, but I don't wanna ever lose them, like how you explained how you wrote your book for your daughters, and what I cook at home, I just needed to give it, in my opinion, a little modern, a little clean up, a little polished twist to be more accepted for, uh, my generation. A lot of people don't cook anymore. People think
Mm,
it's weird. A lot of
mm.
my personal friends and family, not family, friends like that around my neighborhood, think it's really weird that I cook dinner 4 to 5 nights a week.
Wow.
And I'm like, or when I go to the grocery store, I have yelled at someone before and be like, "Why are you buying the onion pre-cut? It's cheaper, it's better." And I was like, "But you know what? There's no education behind it."
Correct.
And I really, that's what, like, my social media platform, I really like to teach, and as
Yeah.
showing the ingredients, showing how to do things, because if you're not teaching it, it's not going to get passed down. And that's something, like, for
Mhm.
me, my whole life is food. I mean, in all aspects of it, but that's my connection to heritage. It's my connection to tradition. It's connection to my family.
Yes, absolutely, 100%. But I go with butter. Oh, so talking to this
Yeah,
gentleman, he says the only places he could make it, he couldn't make it here in the United States. There's only 3 places he could have made it, and that was Newfoundland, Ireland, and the Azores,
green.
because they're all islands. There's a certain amount of whatever distance to the ocean, this, whatever, and they produce the same kind of butter. So if you have a Kerrygold butter and you have Azorean butter, you can't really, it's very similar.
Yeah.
The 2 are so similar. And so just this past week, it was like, who has the best butters? The number 1 was Kerrygold, which
And
second
it's
was,
true, but it's marketing and,
yeah,
and putting it out there.
second was a couple, second and third was some French butters, which I always thought French butters were supposed to be superior to everyone, but they got 2 and 3, whatever. And then it kind of goes down, and I think it was either 5 or 6 was Azores butter. And I saw that and I'm like, hallelujah. It's about time
We got recognition.
somebody
Yeah.
starts talking about our butter. Um, and so I think it's going to be by drips and drabs. And I think by what you're doing with your new book coming out, it's going to open it up to even more people to, and I said this before we started recording. I'm so proud of you. I am
Thank you.
so happy that you did this. And because we need to do this, I think more and more people there is no such thing as too many Portuguese cookbooks.
Well, it's funny because you lead the charts on them. And when I went to look like to do my research and see if this was even an option, and I really wanted to write my book more as a story. Every
Yeah,
recipe has a little blurb before, and I explain like you
me too.
know where it came from and why I love it and why I love Lake Down and my Uncle L seeds and like all those things. But it's when I post stuff on social media, and I have much more of an American audience that I'm really teaching a lot, and they're so interested the amount of interaction that comes as soon as I talk about Portuguese stuff or like just as something as simple as salt.
Mm.
Well, what do you
Huh.
mean? And I was like, if anyone wanted to, I had an interview and someone asked me, what would ruffle your feathers? I said, if you didn't give me the salt that I know how to cook with. If you were to give me iodized or kosher salt, I'd struggle because
There's a difference.
there's a difference, and I even just the feel in my hand when I grab it out of I have the little clay thing that sits next to my range. Like I know what I'm doing and how much of that now I've given that to other people to cook with, and they've screwed up because it's way too strong. But you need to learn and know.
Yeah.
And I'm like when I teach that or we do social posts, and really it opens a platform to
Yeah.
engage people, to ask
Yeah.
questions, to be educated.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, I think there is much more room to do a lot more. And
Yes.
I think we're just at the very beginning. I really do. I
So
really do.
I want to because I know we're limited on time, but I want to
Oh,
flip.
that's
I want
great.
to no, I want to switch gears because I putting things together and I want to play like a little game. I just want to compare because I really found so many similarities with you. And like I read through and was going through your book and your websites and I was watching some videos and I was like, wow, I was like definitely in the same wheelhouse. But I wanted to know a couple questions, just like kind of three ingredients that you always have in your kitchen, no matter what.
3 ingredients?
Yes.
Oh my goodness. Olive oil.
Okay.
That's like
I feel
the
like we're
best.
going to be very similar on a lot of
Yeah.
these.
Olive oil, salt. Oh, bay leaf. I love bay leaves in my
At Portugal, we use a lot of bay leaf. I see. For me, it'd be lemon. I would need or vinegar. Like I need an acid.
Oh, yeah, there's a lot of lemon in there too.
I mean, even we make rice and I put vinegar in at the end.
Do
So,
you?
yeah, well, the tomato rice that like way my mom
Oh,
makes it.
okay,
Yeah,
the red tomato rice for
I do the vinegar. Chicken and rice, I
oh,
do the vinegar at the end.
interesting. Yeah, we would do lemon, not vinegar.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, are you a popsicle or a broa?
Oh, now you're asking me what my favorite child is. Um, it it
You're two
depends on.
opposite, but there's something that you go to because it's the
Yes.
more. Yeah.
Yes, yes. See, it all depends on what mood I'm in. And right now, I'm in the mood for oof. Oh, that's a hard
See,
one.
I love, and I was only one in my. I love broa, and I think it's only because when I was little, like they grill the sardines and we put it on the
We'll
bread,
put on this thing.
and the bread, and
For
that's how
me,
we ate it.
I loved, broa, or we'd call panmi. For us, it would be
Yeah.
panmi. And we use the white flour, not the yellow flour,
Oh,
so
so
it's
we
a
use
little bit
the dark.
little bit
Yeah.
different. But I always loved it grilled. I always loved it. I loved it fresh and that crunchy
Yeah,
part
crunch,
with
the
the
crust.
top and the
That's
butter
where I
and all
can't do
that.
the butter because
Oh,
then
yeah.
it all sticks
And
in there.
after a slice of it with the butter and grilling of it, oh, that's such a
Okay, so
favorite.
so now I have a new way to try it. See,
Uh-huh.
and so I call bacalhau, our mascot. It's the signature fish. And I had a podcast with Tony Concalves, and he goes, "It's one of the biggest debates. Do you love it? Do you hate it? Is it just a holiday?" And I was like, "Not for me. There was always a bucket in the garage soaking, and it was something that was on our dinner table all the
Yeah,
time. And if
all
it
the
was
time.
left over, it was shredded cold with chickpeas and made with a little bit of onion and parsley. So there was always usage." But
Yes.
what's your favorite way that you would do it for your family if you're having Sunday dinner?
If I'm right now,
Yeah.
com natas.
Ah.
That's right now is I'm eating
Old
them with
school.
my
I love
family.
cozido, just going like patatas y grills and like an egg.
That's the go-to that was almost every Friday. And
Yes,
it didn't yeah, that was the go-to that we'd have all the time. And then besides that, the bacalhau gumeshsa, that was always like that's
I like it con
number
patata
1.
too.
Yeah. But right now, my favorite is com natas.
So in my book, I took the recipe the traditional way with the bechamel and everything,
Yeah.
and I did a play on like macaroni and cheese and did them in individual little like casserole
Nice,
dishes. So then they're like little individual with a breadcrumb topping, and you twisted
nice.
them. So, but yeah, so like that's what I'm saying. There's so many plays and so many different versions that you can take these amazing
Yeah,
ingredients.
and I always have it at home. That's a given.
Yeah, so we buy the big piece, you get it cut, you soak it, then you freeze it, and you
Freeze
pull it
it.
out
It's
as
in
you
my
need.
freezer. That's
Yeah,
right. That's
that's it.
exactly it. I said that to somebody not too long ago, and they're like, "What?" I'm like, "Yeah, that's how you do it. What do you think?"
Yeah,
Every
the
time
only
I
thing I
want it,
won't do
I'm
is just
waiting.
because my mom always got in my head, sardines need to be fresh. Like,
Yeah.
when you get those, you get them, you salt them, you let them sit, and that's one of my favorites. We do it every summer. We do my mom does the big charcoal outside, and then I make the pepper salad, and my aunt brings the bread, and everyone sits and eats that.
It's a good time.
Okay. Now, besides bacalao and natas, everyone knows the pastel de nata. What ingredient, like we talked about, is it salt? Is it olive oil? Is it the butter that Americans, if they were introduced to, would just be like, wow, this comes from Portugal? Oh, I thought olive oil only comes from Italy or Greece.
Yeah, and there's different regions of olive oil within every region. There's the one in Trás-os-Montes, there's the one in the center, there's the one in the there is everywhere. There's Alentejo, there's and my favorites have always been Alentejo and Trás-os-Montes. Those olive oils have always been my favorite that come
They're
from that
rich.
region. Yes,
They're
they're
rich.
rich. They've got a nice and
Mouthfeel too, yeah.
yeah. I don't care for ones that are high acid, too
Yeah.
high acid, too strong. People tend to repeat themselves with a high acid, and that's why some people like, "Oh, the Portuguese olive oil, some of them is too." Well, no, you're not buying the right one.
So I
Uh,
like the one from, like you're saying, from up north. I take the lemon peel and I peel the lemon and I infuse it in the big jug and then I sift it out and it just gives this nice little essence of like
ooh,
freshness. It
nice.
doesn't get bitter because the oil has so much fat in it that it actually neutralizes that acidity that comes from the rind or that bitterness that comes from the rind.
Yeah. No, I
Yeah,
think, very much undervalued, very much undervalued, the olive oil. There's so much history there. We've been doing it for so long,
yeah.
and it has to be treated almost like wine. You have to taste it like wine. Um,
Oh, I could. It's like the sip. It's that little,
It's
yeah,
the and
100%.
it's the same thing as wine tasting. You get all that different stuff on your tongue, the stuff that happens along the way, your tip of your tongue to the center to the back. It's the same. And people need to realize how really not only complex and how beautiful the olive oil is. Yeah, it's
When
good stuff.
when you were writing your books, like did so I consider where we're from very farmland because it's not an island. It's very rural. It's like a little bit slow to turn to the world. Like, it's getting
Yeah.
there. But when I was writing like something like feijoada,
Yes.
I absolutely love. I found it hard to polish it for a modern audience or for a new generation to like pick
Yes.
up because I think people are apprehensive. If you're not born in a country where you have to learn to use the resources from land and use the whole animal, you kind of get, I don't know.
Yes.
And they
Yeah.
try it and they love it, but they're apprehensive. When you were doing recipes, did you find that with anything that you really wanted to say from your childhood, but you were like, I don't want people to think it's gross or different?
I came at about it in a different way than you did in that sense.
Okay.
I I wanted to be as pure about it. This is my
Yeah.
thing.
That's what yeah,
And I'm not going to make it more modern. I want to show what it
what it
is.
was. Yeah.
And and if that person wants to tweak it and wants to omit some stuff. That's where we give them the thing of saying, I'm using pork belly and I love to cut it like this and I love to do that and I love to eat it like this. And some people might go, "What with that?" Yeah, we like to fry. I like to
But
render my pork
all
belly.
cultures have it. All cultures have it. The
That's
Italians, the
right.
Greek, we all French,
You got it.
all
You
of
got
them
it.
have it. And it's
I
funny.
have.
Yeah.
rendered down lard in my refrigerator.
Well, I
I
say rejoins. I love rejoins. All it is pork confit. So when you think about people are like, oh my God, you fried it in the fat. I'm like, you know,
yeah,
cassoulet or duck confit,
yeah.
it's just rendered
And
down
that
fat.
that end bits and pieces, that on a piece of, oh my god, on a piece of bread, that's fantastic. Or all of those pieces that you add and you put into when you're making your brua,
Yeah.
it's adding it to the brua and making it a flat bread and making it differently so that, um, you have it different ways. There's so many. I really try to stick to the original. And because I think it's up to the person who's making it and whoever is reading it to say, "Oh, I like this. Oh, but I don't like
Yeah.
goat,"
So
or
but
"I
that's what I
don't."
say. People are like, there's a right and wrong. I'm like, honestly, unless it's baking where you need to measure for certain things, there really is no
100%.
there's really
A
no right
hundred
and
percent.
wrong. And that's why I think I flourished and I loved cooking because I wasn't gonna make a mistake. I was creating something out. I mean, look, you're never going to reinvent the wheel, but we can
No.
tweak it, we can lift it up, we can do da da da. But yes,
Yes.
you can interpret it. And I feel like, you know, when I wrote my book, it was very much about home and where I came from. And like,
Yeah.
I felt that way. I just wanted to make it for the younger generation,
Yeah.
not scary and approachable, so that more people started cooking at home and bringing, like, my big thing is bring it back to the dinner table. We
Yeah.
had dinner every night at the table. I want that with my kids.
Oh, to this day, it still is. To
Yeah,
this day. I don't think
just didn't have a
anyone
meal.
should. Yeah, that's how this is how that's not gonna change. And I love seeing that my all my daughters are married and they all do the same still. They
Yeah.
all, when
Well,
they're
too,
eating,
because
they're at the table
you've
eating
definitely
with their
instilled that.
family.
Yeah.
That's the way it should be. And those phones should not be at that table.
No. Well, so that's the thing. It's like, so home, do you feel that that is a place or feeling or flavor that you taught your daughters to like carry through?
Um, a home is, I mean, it's all three, of course, encapsulated all together.
Yeah.
But home is to me a feeling. I could be here in the United States and I'm home. I could be in the continent and it feels like home. I could be in the Azores and it is home.
It's who you have
Uh,
around and what's on the
it's who
table.
I'm around and who it is, and that's the one thing about being an immigrant. I am a dual citizen. I am, yes, I am Portuguese. But I am also American. I am, and you grow up in here and you're not American enough. And then you go there
And you're not
and
Portuguese.
now you're not Portuguese enough because you're
True.
considered an immigrant there too. You left. You left. We chose
But
to
they
leave.
always, they always, like I say, my grandmother's generation, they came here, they wanted to settle, especially in Newark and Jersey. They came, they built their family, but they all wanted to go back. They didn't want to stay here. It was like, give my kids a chance, like
Yep.
my mom's age and whatnot. And I want to go back because it's a beautiful country, because I know how good it is over there. I just needed the opportunity to do that and go back,
Yeah. So home is where I am and who is around me.
Yeah, I love
And
that.
I think that's a beautiful thing.
So I want to end with a little quick fire.
Okay. Oh
Uh,
boy, quick fire.
yeah.
Okay.
So favorite Portuguese dessert,
Arroz doce.
a latria for me. Best dish that you would make to win someone over. Like your son,
Ooh.
first dish you'd make your son-in-law when you were gonna be like, you're gonna be my favorite.
Oh, roast. A roast. And that's a nice roast of different meats like the.
Like patatas asada with it.
Yes, with the like the ossobuco kind of meats, the shanks,
Yeah,
that kind where everything just like falls apart with roasted potatoes and of course roasted
carrots.
chorizo in
Yeah,
there
all
and
that.
carrots, all that other. Oh yeah, that's yeah.
One word that you would describe the Azores.
Oh, magical.
Ooh, I like that.
There's an energy there. And I think it's not just because it's volcanic islands. There is an energy, a special energy there that I have never found anywhere else.
Well, when I go for my first time, you'll have to be my tour guide. I can
I would
guarantee
love
we
that.
will eat and drink our way all
Oh,
the way
oh
around.
my God, yes. You know, what's funny is I always tell everyone, I said, I there's always so much to do and so many places to go and this and do that and do whatever. And there's always such great food. Oh my God, and great wines and all of that. And at the end, I come home and I'm like, okay, I didn't gain any weight. Why?
Right?
Because we're like
We don't
everywhere.
stop. Right.
We're
And
everywhere.
oh,
So when people go, "I can't eat like that. I can't have this."
I can't
No,
have
you
whole
can.
milk. I can't have bread. I can't have
Oh, you can. Yes, you can. Enjoy it. Because things are not as processed as they are
right.
here,
Oh no.
and it's a different world.
It's
It's a
so
different
good. That's the thing.
it's a different world.
Well, Maria, I want to thank you so much. This has been great. You are so easy. It really is. You've been so easy to talk to, and I could sit here all day with you.
Oh, yeah, we could. We could go keep going. We could keep going.
Yeah. So if people want to find out more about you, what can we tell them?
Just go to my website, azoreangreenbean.com, and everything is there. And yeah, that just go there.
Awesome.
They can see what I'm up to, what trouble I'm in this
Okay.
time.
I feel like when my book gets released and we go on a book tour, I feel like I'm going to stop by. Let's get in the kitchen again.
Uh, yeah, you
Do it.
better.
I
You
will.
better.
Yeah.
I wish you the best.
Thank you.
Have fun.
I am. And that's the thing.
Have
This is
fun.
something I really love to do. I don't feel like yes, there's days that, believe me,
Yes, yes.
but there
But
is this genuine,
enjoy.
true
Yes.
enjoyment and love that I just feel so at peace doing
And
this.
the one thing that you're going to love when people start queuing up to have you sign their book is you're going to see moms and their daughters or their sons, little ones,
Yeah.
who want to cook. And for me, that is like, oh my God, I get up, I go around the table, I give them big hugs and tell them how proud I am
Yeah.
because it continues. But I enjoy the ride, enjoy the journey because it's tiring sometimes, but the joy of it all it
Yeah.
overtakes
So I
everything.
agree.
Yeah, yeah.
So I just want to say thank you from Love with Portugal. We're going to keep this podcast going. So make sure next time people tune in and you always remember my biggest thing is savor the moments.